All right, welcome back to another edition of the Contrarians, a regular episode. Of course, this is the regular one is where we have one of the member of the team has an odd choice for favorite album by a band. This week we're looking at The Cult. Love The Cult. This is a band that I've really grown to like a lot over the years, and I really like their later material a lot. But I promised Jamie, there we go. I promised Jamie I'd leave a lot of the opinionizing out of this. This is the part where we give you a little history of the band. So yeah, the mainstays of the band are Ian Astbury and Billy Duffy. Ian, interestingly, I'm in Toronto, and Ian actually lived in Hamilton down the highway for a little while in his childhood. But English band, big classic rock fans, but also they got quite enamored with the early punk scene, post-punk, goth rock. So you have the Southern Death Cult to start out. They eventually become The Cult. They've got the Dreamtime album is the first one officially as The Cult. And then they have kind of the big one that got some excitement about them, kind of a hard rock U2 sound with this one here. And this is the one that kind of got them going. It's kind of interesting. I'm looking at the catalog, and I thought they sold more records than they did. I mean, they've done pretty good, and I'm gonna mention a bit of that. But in Canada, this band went all three of the big albums, starting with this one. Let's see. Is it? Yeah, it is starting with that one, and then we get to this one. This was next. So basically, this is the big one that had She Sells Sanctuary on it, Phoenix, Revolution. What is it? Is Rain on here?
Yes.
Yeah, Rain was a big hit too. But
big hit.
What's that?
Big. Yeah. What's your definition of big?
Yeah, well, okay. So up here, I guess She Sells Sanctuary was the biggest hit. And then they had this record here, the notorious Rick Rubin one. To me, this record is exactly like the front cover of Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. And what I mean by that is I'm surprised more people were not up in arms and like shocked and all that kind of stuff about this record when it came out. But it was more or less accepted that they had this straightforward sort of AC/DC-ish sound after being, a thoughtful U2 type goth band, a little more arty. So yeah, and I feel the same way about Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. I had a whole book called Black Sabbath FAQ with a chapter on that album cover. I'm like surprised that did not just send people into conniptions. But anyways, then they had the next big album was Sonic Temple. This was their bigger one in the States, I suppose, but it was also just platinum. Electric was platinum in the States. Love was gold in the States. So yeah, back to what I was mentioning before. All of these records went double platinum in Canada. So per capita, they were actually quite a bit of a bigger band here in Canada. Along the way through the classic lineup, you had Jamie Stewart on bass. He was a mainstay. And then eventually you'd have a lot of different bass players and drummers and stuff. 1991 Ceremony. Ian also has quite a preoccupation with like Native American themes. So you see that through a lot of what he does. Obviously, there's a big Doors thing to these guys as well. He was a big Doors fan. They even went out later. There was Doors of the 21st Century, and Ian was fronting that band. So 1991 Ceremony. Then they take 3 years before they come back with The Cult. Right. So long time, big change in sound. And then another long wait before you get to Beyond Good and Evil. This is when I got to interview Ian in a hotel room, and he signed with that really cool signature that he does. But to me, this is their a little bit of their Whitesnake 1987 album. It's a big production. It sounds big and bold and back to sort of a classic sound in a big way. And then Born Into This. Let's see, what do we got? Born Into This. We've got a little, there's some singles that I've got hanging around. There's another little Devil single that I had hanging around. Choice of Weapon, which is actually my favorite. There you go. Choice of Weapon is probably my favorite Cult album.
Oh, that's contrarian.
Yeah, it is. It is. Hidden City. I mean, again, this is a band that really, like, I was in there in the beginning. I liked them a lot. Didn't love them. I mean, I love that. I love the big Infectious Electric album. But later on, I've really gotten to like this later catalog. To me, it's one of these what I call a retirement band, where it's like I just feel like I need to take a whole bunch of time and really soak in this material and go through the books and read the lyrics again and stuff. Because what a great band! I'm really kind of so into them a lot lately, and really impressed with these later albums. You know, Born Into This and whatnot. Just another lineup note. John Tempesta has more or less settled in as their drummer. He's been on the last three. He's been there since 2006. And that's kind of your history of the Cult. So pretty big band. I'll mention one other thing. When the Cult came out, 1994, this was also when Brave Words and Bloody Knuckles was starting up as a magazine. And all through the history of Brave Words, the Cult were one of these bands, whether it came directly from the guys or from the label or whatever, they did not want to be called a heavy metal band. And so we never got a lot of interface with the guys. I've never interviewed Billy Duffy. I interviewed Ian twice. Once was a phoner and one in person. But we did not have them in the magazine very much because they really wanted to stay away from that heavy metal tag. So it's always been a bit of an arm's length relationship with this band. But I'm so into them. I think they're incredible artists. That's all I'll say right now for the intro. So I'm going to turn it over to Jamie, who's going to tell us what the greatest Cult album of all time is. Go for it.
Can I do a quick build up on my quick opinions on the ones?
Yes, going up absolutely. We'd love to hear that.
Where I stand, where I'm coming from.
For sure.
I don't want to rank them because I'm going to do that on Pete's channel sometime soon and don't want to do it twice. So I'll go through them in chronological order real quick. You mentioned Dreamtime.
Yep.
You know, these early albums, they seem to have that early post-punk production on them. Early, you know, they were always an alternative band to me. Even when they got heavy, alternative rock, not classic rock, not metal, alternative rock. And these early albums have a bit of a sound where Ian sounds like he's singing from the other side of the cave, you know, a little echoey and far away. So, I mean, it's not a deal breaker. But you mentioned the AC/DC swagger that they put into post-punk and goth. I don't think anyone was doing that at the time, and I don't think anyone's done it since. I mean, there's been a little bit of copycats here and there, but there's that cult groove. You know, you can call Iron Maiden's Gallop the Maiden Gallop. I think there's a cult groove, and you recognize it in other bands when you hear it. Oh, that sounds like the Cult. But you know what? Before doing my homework, I thought I hated this album. It's not bad, though. I'm glad I rediscovered it. I always disliked the title track, and I think I always judged it by the title track.
Right.
So next is Love.
Cool shot of what they look like there.
There you go. Yep, that's definitely 1984 there.
Yeah.
And then Love, you mentioned. Still has that echoey sound to Ian, that post-punk sound. It's not in your face, except for, well, Rain is really good on this. I didn't know that was a hit. Rain makes me wish I had hair, Martin, so I could just get up and swing my hair around. Unfortunately, I haven't bought shampoo since 2014. But in Nirvana is really good. It almost sounds like Firewoman. It's like a thing showing what's to come, almost like the blueprint for Firewoman. But She Sells Sanctuary, to me, sounds like nothing else on this album. It just pops on this album. All the echo-ness of his voice is gone. The production's in your face. It sounds like they went into the future, grabbed the song off of Sonic Temple or Electric, and put it on this album. Yep. Electric is next, you mentioned. I would like to think this album saved kids, high school kids, from getting their butt kicked at high school parties. Because I don't know about you, Martin, but when I grew up, cliques were divided by the music you listened to. Yep. You had the rap guys, you had the long hairs who listened to metal, you had the weird kids who listened to goth and all that, like Bauhaus and The Cure. And you had the nerds that might be listening to 80s Rod Stewart and Phil Collins. So if you went to a party, and if you were one of the weird kids with your Cure shirt on, and you were mixed in with the long hairs, as we used to call them, and you went to the keg, and a long hair would look at you, and you with your Cure shirt, it's like, Cure, what's that crap? You look up at the big guy, and you go, do you like the Cult? Yeah, the Cult rocks. The Cult just saved that kid from getting his butt kicked, Martin.
Yeah.
They were bridging the gap between the two. So yeah, I mean, oh God, there's so many songs on here. Wildflower, AC/DC riffs, rocking. It's rocking a notch more than the previous album, definitely. Little Devil, Aphrodisiac Jacket. It says here, no notes, too busy dancing. Electric Ocean, the next song, still says, no notes, still dancing. Cult makes me dance like no one's watching. The one thing I don't like about this album, such a blemish, the Born to Be Wild cover. Oh, it's so unneeded. And if you're going to cover, it's not a bad cover. It just doesn't belong on this album. This album is too special for that blemish. And if you're going to cover a song, why do one as cliche as Born to Be Wild? Ugh. So next, we're cooking with fire. And this, a few times, you know, it rotates in, my number 1 and number 2 rotate, but we'll get to that later. And this has been my favorite at times. The issue I have with it, and we're splitting hairs, Martin. This show should be called Splitting Hairs because we do that a lot on this show. And I got the 30th anniversary box set behind me.
Okay.
And it comes with a cassette with demos and a live album live at Wembley.
Nice. Yeah.
And I even got this, Martin. Remember these? The long box.
Yeah, cool.
With the CD. And for you kids out there,
nice.
You'd buy a CD and it would come at the bottom of this. And I think it made it harder to steal.
Yep.
I think that's why they use them.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Sun King, the buildup on Sun King. Doon, and doon, and doon. And you hear the cymbals and it builds and builds. And then Ian goes, this is where it all ends. Poof, down. Right. It might be one of my favorite moments in all of music right there. It's such a great way to start an album. And you know right away, this one's going to be up a notch from the previous one still. Funny, for 25 years, I always thought he said, this is where it all begins. But he says ends for some, it still sounds like begins to me. But the first 5 songs are 5-star songs. I mean, Firewoman's still played on the radio today, and my wife wanted me to mention it's her favorite song. The next songs, Soul Asylum to Medicine Train, what is that, 6 songs? They're great. They're really great, but they're 4.5-star songs. So it kind of gives the impression that it's top heavy. The album's top heavy. If they would have mixed those songs up a bit more, I don't know. I'm splitting hairs, Martin. It's a great album. Who am I to say? Yeah. Ceremony's next. Got a German pressing on vinyl. You got that on vinyl, Martin?
No, I've never owned that on vinyl, only on CD.
I out-Martined Martin.
Oh, you got a lot of stuff there I don't have. That's pretty impressive.
This was not well received when it first came out. Everyone thought it was disappointing. I liked it, and I probably like it. I think it aged well. You know what? And what was the hit off of this? Wild Hearted Son. I think it's as good as any single they ever released. Heart and Soul comes in sounding a bit like a Skid Row ballad, but I like the way they do ballads. You know, they're kind of power ballads, but they got this groove, and they're not afraid to stretch out a ballad and have downtime and then rock at the end with guitar solos. This is how the Cult cursed themselves. They called themselves the Cult, and they became a cult band. You know, maybe they should have called themselves Mainstream, and they would have had better success. And the second way they cursed themselves is they did a song called Nirvana. And guess what album dropped the same day as this album? Nirvana, Nevermind. Oh, so it was like literally, and we know that Nevermind was kind of like an eraser, just went whoosh on the past. And it was, when this dropped, it was like, I Out with the old, in with the new. And it had mild success, but the kids were just moving on. I was in my early 20s during then, and I remember we were all just moving on, and everything sounded dated overnight. But I don't think there would be a Nirvana without the Cult, my opinion. So next comes the 1994 album. Let me put those notes to the side, Martin, because we'll get there in a minute. Okay. 2001, I'm not missing an album, am I? 2001, Beyond Good and Evil comes out. And I'm going to say it. If this is a comeback album, it's the best comeback album in all of rock history, in my opinion.
Yeah, love it.
Some of you people out there might say, well, what about this one? I'm saying it's better than this one. And it did kind of well for an older band. You know, what was that? Rise was the single. It was getting played on rock radio. I was in Columbus at the time, just moved here. It was getting played next to Papa Roach and Disturbed. It was kind of cool to see that. And guess what aged well and what didn't age well? Papa Roach did not age well, and this still sounds pretty fresh to me. War is a great song. Nico shows that they could still do a really cool ballad. My Bridges Burn might be the best song to close out a comeback album, rock comeback album. And then we are on Born Into This. This is actually the first time I saw them live. I liked them for all those decades. First time I saw them live was on this album. And this is when, to me, you like the later stuff a lot. It's very interesting to see someone's perspective who came in and just absorbed it all at once instead of went through the decades with them. And all the albums kind of come in like equal for you. For me, I'm like, okay, they're older. There's kind of, I hear it in Ian's voice a little bit. That the grooves, you kind of run out of grooves and beats as a band. You know, you don't want to repeat what you've done, like Iron Maiden on their latest album is kind of repeating a lot. You don't want to do that. You want to mix it up, and they are kind of mixing it up, but you can tell to my ears, they're running out of ideas a little bit. But Dirty Little Rock Star was a single, got played on the radio a little bit. And it's a good single. I mean, it's a dirty sounding song. It sounds, you know, they do stripper songs very well. And I could see that being like a stripper song, maybe for the day shift. I Assassin is on it, and that song is just great. And I'm so happy they did that live when I saw them on that tour. Yeah, that song is great. Holy Mountain reminds me of Ian singing like Danzig, singing like Elvis. And Danzig recently did an Elvis album. So he sounds like Danzig doing Elvis better than Danzig doing Elvis to my ears. Then Choice of Weapon comes out, your favorite. And I listened to this a lot when it came out. I would walk in the morning and put this on. And I think I was trying to get it to click for me. You know, I liked it, but I wanted to like it more. But it's okay. Honey from a Knife is a good song, and it's got a sing-along chorus. The problem is the sing-along chorus is, we got the drugs. We got the drugs. And at 52, I don't want to sing that. Maybe if I was 22, it would be fun with a joint in one hand, but I'm 52 now, Martin. I don't want to sing that out loud. For the Animals is a straight ahead, back to basics rock song. It would have worked well as a single. It's got a song on here called Amnesia. And I feel like I have amnesia when I listen to it, because right when it's over, I forget how it went. I don't, not memorable to me at all. It rocks in parts, but if I went blind into these albums like you did, to my ears, I would be saying, yeah, and this is the first album I ever heard. Yeah, this is by a band who's probably a little older, and I would like to see what they did prior. Then Hidden City comes out. God, and I before I got my stuff together for this, I found I lost this album and I had to rebuy it. And I hate rebuying albums, especially when I don't think they're that great. This sounds to me like a tired band. A lot of the songs start like here, okay, here we go. And then they kind of run out of steam about a minute and a half into it for me. Ian sounds better on this album when he's in the lower octave. When he tries to be the Ian of old is when he sounds a little bit tired to me. And Sound and Fury on it, the last song, is probably my least favorite Cult song. It's slow, it goes nowhere, it has no chorus. And I don't mind a song without a chorus, but this one just, no, doesn't do anything for me. So let's get back to the reason why we're here. The Cult, 1994. I wish I had it on vinyl, but it's very pricey and it's never reissued. But I do have the cassette. There you go, Tim Derling got the cassette. Now, I mentioned that Sonic Temple and this album have rotated as my favorite. And I was thinking about, remember when Pluto was a planet? Yep. Here we go. Where's Laszlo going with this? Well, Neptune and Pluto, as you can see, let's see, it's Pluto, Neptune.
Okay.
Their orbits used to intersect. And every once in a while, one would be closer to the sun than the other. And then the other one would be further away, and vice versa. Well, that's how it replaced the sun with me and put the two albums there. And they kind of rotate. You know, every 236 years, the other one becomes my favorite, Martin.
Nice.
So it's hard to defend this album, Martin. It's funkier. It has less guitar riffs. It's less big and in your face. It's stripped down, simple production. It's crazy that Bob Rock produced this and Beyond Good and Evil, because Beyond Good and Evil, some people said suffered from loudness wars, and there's no loudness wars going on this album. It kind of sounds like an electric rock album and an unplugged album at the same time, oddly enough. It's so organic sounding. I mean, it is so organic that some of these notes, it's like you could find them at Whole Foods in the produce section. That's how organic this album is. And it has a live in the studio feel, almost like you're going to hear them say banter between songs. And you kind of do right before The Emperor's New Horse. But here's the thing when I'm trying to defend this. It's like trying to sell ice fishing, Martin. Now, if I liked ice fishing, what would I say? Oh, Martin, you get up before the sun comes out. It's cold. You go out there. You're alone. You're by yourself in this little shed. You're sitting over ice. You're waiting for a fish to bite the hook. It's great, Martin. And you would say, everything you just said is why I don't want to do it.
I thought you were going to say you get to start drinking beers at 7 a.m.
Well, that's the only good thing. And you don't have to worry about a cooler. You can just bring the case, put it on the ice. But yeah, everything that people love about ice fishing is what the people who hate it hate about it. So what I love about this album might be those things that you hate about it. And I knew right away in 1994 too, when I bought this, when you hear the dum 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 dum, I'm like, this sounds like a beginning of a Jimi Hendrix album. This is going to be a different album. And I was not turned off. Right when I heard it, I knew this is going to be special. It's good. There are landmark albums in the history of rock and roll. All right. We can't debate that. Even if you hate Nevermind, it's a landmark album. Then we have landmark albums in our own personal life. You know, kind of the stakes along the way. Oh, that album was a lot to me. This is a landmark album in my life. Gone, I said, it starts off sounding like Jimi Hendrix, psychedelic. I think this album is kind of weed happy. You know, if you're into that kind of thing, put this album on for 47 minutes, whatever it is, and change, 50 minutes, I don't know. I think you're good to go. Coming Down has one of my favorite grooves ever. It's definitely I Wish I Had Hair song for sure. Real Girl, that's GRRRL, no I. Martin, if you ever write a book on the Cult, remember that. Yeah. No I and girl. Yeah. Great song. Black Sun. It's kind of like an alternative rock epic. It starts moody, it builds up, it comes back down, it builds back up. Now, some people might say it's very tedious, but I love it. I'm in for it for the whole trip. Yep. And you know what? And they're kind of a two-guy band almost on this album, with Billy and Ian. Yeah. Naturally High. I had that song stuck in my head all week leading up to this video. Of all the songs, for some reason, that one was stuck in my head. Joy. I love the little organ part in it. It's I can see people hating this album. It's very hard to sell. It's like trying to sell a used car that is beat up, but you love. Star, one of my favorite songs, probably my favorite cult song ever, Star, which I read recently was made in 1986 as Tom Petty, and it kind of metamorphosed into Star in 1994. There's a swirly, funky sound going on during the song. I don't know what it is, but if there's a heaven, and if I go, I hope that's what's playing when I enter the pearly gates. I know I'm going to the right place. The problem, what I hate? That a lot of people don't know about this album. And they put Coming Down and Star on their greatest hits album, Pure Cult. Okay. And this album is kind of like a little secret for us cult fans. And if you put it on your greatest hits, you're going to get the people who only want the greatest hits album in on our secret. And I don't want them in on our secret. I wish they would have kept those two songs off that album. Sacred Life is great. He mentions, people that died young, like the River Phoenix and Kurt Cobain. And kind of the message is, that for me anyways, is, live every day like it's your last. Great message. Not that I do that, though. I don't live every day like my last. unless you count your last day like lying on your deathbed doing nothing, then I live every day like it's my last, Martin, because all I do is lay around and do nothing. Be Free, straight ahead rocker. I wonder if people, when they got this album, anticipating it to be like, regular cult, so why can't the other songs be more like Be Free? It's probably the most straight ahead rocker. And Saints Are Down, man, 7 minutes long, got an eerie, repetitive chanting in the middle, then rocks at the end. I don't know if people hate it, but I'm all in. I'm all in. So yeah, when an album's sounding this stripped down, I think you have to have good ideas, and you have to have hardly any flaws in it, because everything's exposed. Nothing's covered up by overproduction and a lot of instruments. It's not a shiny sounding album, but the album shines for me. That's the best way I can put it. And people don't have to agree with me. This isn't etched in stone. I'm not the judge and jury. I'm just starting the conversation, Martin. That's all I'm doing. So let's have a long conversation in the comments about it. Well, this is the cult, so only about 24 people will be watching. So let's have a somewhat short conversation in the comment section about this. So, Martin, you tell me why I'm wrong. That's your job.
Yeah, I love that analysis of it. It's really cool, because I remember at the time there was a lot of debate about this album because it was so different and so non-stadium rock compared to what came before. I gotta say, Sonic Temple, I've always had it in for Sonic Temple. I know it's the, I did my History in 5 Songs episode on Go to Vancouver and Try Harder. This is the Cult's Go to Vancouver and Try Harder Bob Rock album. But to me, it suffers a little bit about everything I don't like about Bon Jovi. I feel like it's the weak tea version of Electric. Electric is just, you've got that Rick Rubin distilled concept of we're going for one thing straight between the eyes, and Sonic Temple just seems to be like, well, let's throw in a little more stadium rock to it. To me, it's a bloated album. I've never put it as a favorite, but in terms of how you're wrong, I would say, what we normally do, I'll do that now. This idea of looking at how these things are ranked, best ever albums rates Love, then Sonic Temple, then Electric, and the Cult is number 4, so that's pretty high. Return of Rock, they actually, for some reason, completely miss it out. They've got Sonic Temple, Love, Electric. Beyond Good and Evil is quite high, then Ceremony. Louder Sound had Electric first, Sonic Temple, Love, Dreamtime, Beyond Good and Evil, and they have this in the avoid department. I do remember at the time, definitely there was so much hubbub about this record. It was very contentious. And it's funny when you say organic and stripped down, because my memory of it is always of the elements of it that go to that Manchester noise rock U2 Achtung Baby thing. There's a little bit of that to it as well, a little bit of a layering of noise that they put on it. And noise is not something that they were allowed to do on the previous 2 albums, right? They were very conservative records, and this is not a conservative record. I love what you said about so many great ideas on here, because to me, this was always an album. The songs I love are my favorite Cult songs of all time. And then there's 2 or 3 where you go, I just don't prefer your direction on these. Like, I don't like this style of music, right? And it's funny, when you said that was a great comment about their Nirvana album being an eraser on everything. To me, the Cult were gonna sneak through more or less alive with some of their integrity intact, because they weren't a rote hair band. Although Sonic Temple kind of, to me, goes a little bit close, but already at Ceremony they were adjusting a little bit. And to me, this record, what it does is it stakes a claim not as a grunge band, but it stakes a claim on this new thing called alternative. Because when you mention alternative is something that really wasn't talked about until just a year or 2 after grunge. I feel like that's when you actually started seeing that tag, and it was used moving forward. And then the Cult very capably kind of stepped into that with this record. Okay, so Louder Sound also says that this self-titled album was also known as the Black Sheep album, made a perverse sense, considering the Cult were virtual pariahs at this point, the height of grunge. Astbury, perhaps emboldened by Kurt Cobain et al.'s autobiographical eviscerations, wrote some of his most personal lyrics to date, but unfortunately the music that accompanied them was less than gripping. Real Girl was propelled by the sort of tinny machine beat that had been popular circa, here's the Manchester thing. Like, I hated all that Manchester stuff. So when I hear any of those kind of production things, I turn right off, right? Naturally High was like tepid Jesus Jones. Joy lacked the feral power of Yore, and Be Free, like the Birds and the Bees, was a whimsical nadir. Rancor had Love, Electric, Sonic Temple, Ceremony, Dreamtime, Beyond Good and Evil. The Cult is number 7 there.
It should be called Wanker.
Yeah, right. Rate Your Music had they only do the top 5, and it wasn't in there at all. So it was Sonic Temple, Ceremony, Love, Electric, Born Into This. Moving on to how much these songs were played live. Like, granted, there was the long hiatus, but these songs did not show up live at all. The first song is number 28 in the whole ranking. That was Gone, and then Star came in at number 46. Wikipedia mentioned the style of the music is more reminiscent of the grunge and alternative rock scene popular at the time. So again, it has a little bit of alternative grunge to it, but a lot of it just fits squarely in alternative. And that's where it's like, you could see again with the start of our magazine, Brave Words and Blind Knuckles, you could tell right then. So this is when it was really a bad career move to be considered anything to do with heavy metal. So they were making this album that was totally moving away from that. So it was very convenient, and it made a lot of sense in parallel to say we are not a metal band at all. So that's pretty much all I had to say. I mean, it is definitely a contrarian choice, because it is that nexus of the classic era albums, especially Electric and Sonic Temple. And again, I was even when Sonic Temple came out, I was not appreciating that direction at all. I just found it was like the safe corporate thing to do after Electric, because they were changing rapidly throughout all this time. And then the Cult, to me, was a return to the artists that those guys are. They are true artists. And I really feel like Electric is a weird one. It's a shocking thing. Like I say, the Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, but I don't think they were artists on Sonic Temple. And that's really the only album that they aren't artists on. I think everything else they did was just super highly creative, and you could really appreciate what they were doing. But yeah, definitely a contrarian choice. I don't know. Anything to add? Anything you want to respond to anything I said, or?
You're probably, of all the people that like the Cult, you're probably the only person I ever met that didn't like Sonic Temple.
Yeah.
That's all right. I mean, that was when that came out, I was 19. That was our let's go park behind the trees and drink beer album.
Yeah. I don't like the production either. I think the production is a little, when I describe Bon Jovi or say Get a Grip and maybe 9 Lives, car sick production. It sounds like that little bit of nausea thing. Bon Jovi is the clear example. So Bon Jovi and those Aerosmith albums, and this album, Sonic Temple, has a bit of that car sickness to me. That just kind of coagulated, slight nausea feel. You're reading in the back seat, shouldn't read in the back seat.
Right.
And that I really didn't like about it at all. But all right, well, let's wrap it up. This was really good. Thank you for this, Jamie. That was an awesome analysis of the whole catalog as well, which is great.
Buy your swag.
And, yes, awesome. Thank you. That definitely looks really nice seeing that here. And
be cool like me.
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate, people really should go and play all of these latter albums because again, you really see the integrity of Ian. Ian is, he's a little bit of a live life like it's your last. He's a vital. Yeah, it's cool seeing it on vinyl as well. Yeah, and the alternate covers, right? I mean, even my Dreamtime had when they started reissuing this stuff, they did some alternate stuff. So go play some Cult, go play some of this recent stuff, but definitely give Jamie your respect and go reevaluate that Cult album because
give the band respect.
Yes. Yeah. This band definitely deserves respect. And I don't think they get a lot of respect simply because of that electric Sonic Temple era thing. Those might be big sellers and kind of well-liked on a surface level, but I think that those are the records why they don't get as much respect as they deserve. So yeah. Join us in the comments below. Check us out on Patreon. We got a lot of cool Patreon shows. Marco's always keeping that very vital and busy with some cool concepts. And until then, go play some Cult.
That's it, dude.